Girigabadan Jaya Girigabadan Girigabadan Jaya Girigabadan Jaya Jayo Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Jayo Radha Giridhari Jaya Uranitai Jaya Uranitai Uranitai Jaya Uranitai Jaya Jaya Uran Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya 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 Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari Gopi Jana Balaba Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vana Chari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Gopi Channa Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Raja Jamuna Tira Banda Chari Shri Radha Madhava Ashtasaki Ki Jai Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Oh, okay, yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 11, Chapter 16, The Lord's Opulences. And again, these are dialogue, discussion, instructions by Krishna to Uddhava, with Uddhava. Yeah. And he's giving Uddhava the instructions he needs so he can protect the devotees after he goes. So there's a chapter summary, and we're on text number 1. You do that? Are you going to read the summary or what? Okay. Text number 1. Okay. Here we go. Shri Uddhava Uvacha Tvam Brahma Paramam Sakshad Anadi Andam. Boy, I can't even see it. Huh. Like my glasses here. I have to use the other device. I can read it there, actually. Okay. Anadiyantam apavritam sarvesham api bhavanam tranastiti apyayod bhava Boliye. Uddhava Uvacha Aman Bharavan Sakshad Bhavritam Shri Uddhava uvacha. Shri Uddhava said, Tvam, you are Brahma, the greatest. Okay. So now he's going to say, you are this, you are this, you are this, you are this. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is going to focus on the different words and give the perspective and so on. Yeah. Because the word Brahma, it's used a lot, but what does it mean? Okay, Brahma, the greatest. Paramam, the supreme. Sakshat, himself. Anadi, without beginning. Antam, without end. Apavritam, unlimited by anything else. Sarvesham, of all. Api, indeed. Bhavanam, things which exist. Trana, the protector. Stiti, the life giver. Apyaya, the destruction. So here we have, okay, and Udbhavaha, creation. So we have Stiti, Apyaya, and Udbhava. See, Uddhava said, my dear Lord, you are beginningless and endless, the absolute truth himself, unlimited by anything else. You are the protector and life giver. Protector and life giver, the destruction and creation of all things that exist. Please repeat. Sri Uddhava said, my dear Lord, you are beginningless and endless, the absolute truth himself, unlimited by anything else. You are the protector and life giver, the destruction and creation of all things that exist. Brahman, or this is actually Hridayananda Maharaj. Brahman means the greatest of all and the cause of everything. Okay. Uddhava here addresses the Lord as Paramam, or Supreme Brahman, because in his feature as Bhagavan, the Lord is the highest feature of the absolute truth, the shelter of unlimited spiritual opulences. Unlike those of ordinary living entities, the Lord's opulences cannot be restricted by time, and thus the Lord is Anadi Antam, without beginning or end, and Apavritam, unhindered by any superior or equal potency. The opulence of the material world is also resting within the Lord, who alone can protect, maintain, create, and destroy the material world. Yeah. In this chapter, Sri Uddhava inquires from the Lord about his spiritual and material opulences in order to refine his appreciation of the Lord's position as the absolute truth. Even Lord Vishnu, the ultimate creator of the material world, is an expansion of Lord Krishna, and thus Sri Uddhava wishes to fully appreciate the unique status of his personal friend. So, any questions or comments at this point? It's okay. Anybody disagree? No? Yeah, okay, there's a question. Yeah. I think you have a microphone here somewhere. Yeah. Where are the microphones? Oh, there. Talking to the ice cream cone.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. I only have a question. So the Param Satyam is referred to here as the absolute truth using another term. The Param Satyam, the absolute truth, is being referred to by another term in the Vedic translation. Can we read the original Sanskrit one more time, please?
Oh, okay.
The Paramam, the Brahma Paramam Sakshat, that is what's being referred to in Sanskrit as the absolute truth. The Brahma Paramam Sakshat.
Yeah.
This is the translation for the absolute truth, the Param Satyam.
I think it's indirect. You know, all of these words. It's like the word love. You know, you see, a lot of discussion on the word love. You know, okay. It's the word Brahma. Brahma has all kinds of discussions. There are Sanskrit dictionaries, the Nirukti, that's the other one, Amarakosh, and they're composed by great sages a long time ago, and they're accepted. You know, people accept them as these are being like definitions of the words and so on. But Brahman, like he's saying here, Brahman means the greatest and the source of everything. But here it's Brahma Param, Brahma Paramam, okay, the supreme greatest. And so that would have to be the absolute truth. Yeah, because you can't divide it. There's no solvent. You can't dissolve it. Yeah, because it's the source of everything. So it's an indirect translation. Yeah, okay, yeah. One time in Boise, Idaho, yeah. What is it? Somebody brought this up. I think it was Srinivas. Somebody brought up the point that because many times Prabhupada's translations don't exactly, match the word-by-word meanings and so on. And I think Srinivas then said, yeah, because, Prabhupada's kind of including it seems that Prabhupada is including the commentaries of Sridhar Swami in his translations. So he's translating it using Sridhar Swami's thing. And then Jiva Goswami's commentaries and so on are in the purports usually. They usually kind of like divide them like that. And Professor Ravi Gupta, Radhika Ramandas said, yes, it's what happens generally. Sridhar Swami is considered the first commentator on the Bhagavatam as far as we're concerned. So he's before Lord Chaitanya, everything else, and so on. So sometimes, he may say that it means absolute, like that. This is already the 11th canto. It's assumed you've already gone through the first 10 cantos and understood them all. Okay, yeah. We'll do it again. Yeah. Other comments here. I had one question. I'm surprised none of you had it. Okay. My question is, where to go here? Here to somewhere. Yeah. Krishna is the Trana, and where's it here? He's the protector, the Trana, and Stiti, the life giver, destruction of the entire creation. In English it says he's the protector and life giver and destruction and creation. So we have life giver and we have creation. Some of these words seem to be like what's the word, like redundant. If he's giving life, okay, and creation, so I guess maybe what it means that creation doesn't have to be living objects. He's the creation of things, but not necessarily the life force. That was my question. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next verse then and see what Uddhava says next. You got it there? Okay. Where are we here? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate. Okay. Uchavachesu bhuteshu Dorjnyeyam akrit atmabahu Upasate tvam bhagavan Yata tatyena brahmanaha. Even if you don't understand what they mean, it sounds nice. If you were waiting to catch the subway to go someplace, and these things were just playing in the background, it would be nice, nice atmosphere. Yeah. Okay. My dear Lord, Uddhava continues, although it is difficult for the impious to understand that you are situated in all superior and inferior creations, those Brahmanas who are actually knowers of the Vedic conclusion worship you in truth. Okay? The behavior of saintly persons is also to be taken as evidence. And therefore it is here stated that although ignorant, impious persons are bewildered before the Lord's all-pervading feature, those with purified, clear consciousness worship the Lord as he is. In this chapter, Sri Uddhava inquires about the Lord's opulences, and here the words Uchava Cheshu Bhuteshu, Uchava Cheshu Bhuteshu, within superior and inferior creations, clearly refer to the Lord's external opulences, those manifested in the material world. The saintly Brahmanas, or Vaishnavas, worship Lord Krishna within all things, and yet recognize the variety in the Lord's creation. For example, in worshiping the deity, the devotees will select the nicest flowers, fruits, and ornaments for decorating the transcendental form of the Lord. Similarly, although the Lord is present in the heart of every conditioned soul, the devotees will give more attention to a conditioned soul interested in the message of Lord Krishna. Although the Lord is everywhere, the devotees make distinctions for the sake of the Lord's service between his presence in superior, ucha, and inferior, avachesu creations. So, any questions now? It's very, what's the word? Something. Logical. Yeah. Esoteric. Yeah. And the same thing that we were remembering in the prayers by Queen Kunti in the first canto, chapter 8. Chapter 8? Yeah. She says you're inside of everything and outside of everything. Maya javani kachanam, but you're covered like by a curtain. If I tell you that somebody is everywhere, you can look, and he's in your heart. And you expect you should be able to see him. He's everywhere, everywhere. But he said, but still, people can't see you. It's confusing. They can't see you. And so, because in the first verse, he's giving all these opulences that Krishna has, but he's saying, but people can't see you. But the Brahmanas, they're aware of this. There's one verse that we use in the puja for worshiping the deity. It's from the Rig Veda. I remember what it is. Can't remember it right away. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada Pashanti Surayo Devivya Chakshuratatam Tad Vipaso Yapanyave Jagravangsa Savinjate Vishnuya Paramam Param. That's the only thing I know from the Rig Veda. But it says, because of their purified intelligence, the wise and learned Brahmanas, they can see all the way to Goloka, to Vaikuntha, to your planet. One man is walking along the road, and he sees some guy up on a tree limb, cutting off, dead branches and stuff, and he's going to collect them and take them off and maybe sell them in the market for fuel or use them himself. But he's maybe about this high off, height of the altar. And the problem is he's sitting here sawing like this, right? Sitting on the branch and sawing. But the problem is the tree's over here. You see the problem there? The tree's over here and he's sawing over here. So the man who's down below says, "Hey, this thing's gonna come loose and you're gonna fall down and hurt yourself, And the guy yells at him, "Leave me alone, mind your own business." You go, "Okay." So he goes on, and finally the limb breaks and he falls down and cracks his head, and after about 10 minutes he comes back to consciousness, and he said, "My God, that man was a mystic. He could tell the future." Yeah. So by purified intelligence, and we begin to see, this has to be happening because of this, that's happening because of this, and stuff. And you meet people who are more intelligent than you are, and they just, they can everything, yeah. By your physiognomy, by your shape of your forehead, everything else, it can tell so many things about your family, everything else. Lord Brahma, as far as I understand, in the Krishna book, he's almost like the super soul, says that in the Bhagavatam. But he's like conscious of 3/4 of what's happening in the material world. He'll know the names of all of your children, grandchildren, everything else, what's going to happen with all of them. Why? Well, it's obvious. It's just like this and that, and figure out a few things, and yeah. So that's what's saying the Brahmanas, real Brahmanas, who know Brahman, they begin to see these kind of features like that. And of course, there are different levels of Brahmanas. Some know Brahman, there is reality, yeah. And then some Paramatma bodies, sannyasis, they begin to see the details, And then the devotee Vaishnavas, they begin to see how it's all being motivated to move and act, and different relationships are there. There was a Rath Yatra in New York, 5 years ago or something. And many years, of course, one of the very, very first, I guess the second Rath Yatra, third, maybe third Rath Yatra was in New York. First San Francisco, and I think Los Angeles and New York, I guess, was next. Yeah. And so that, Jagannath, the deities have been going out for many years. And they have police to go along and making a rolling blockade to block the traffic for one block, before and behind the procession and everything else. And these are off-duty police officers. They pay them or something like that. It's just the kind of thing like that. So it was raining. Some rain falling, enough to really probably stop the festival. So one devotee was standing across from the temple where the deities were supposed to come out, and a couple more devotees, and there was one of these local police officer guys there standing in his uniform, And the devotee was saying, "No, my God, it looks like we're going to have to cancel the Rath Yatra." And this police officer said, "No, you watch. I've been doing this for 5 years now." And he said, "You watch, it'll stop." And sure enough, about 5-10 minutes before the deities came out, the rain stopped. So this guy, So you begin to see that there is transcendental operation. The world does appear to be ethical and moral. Bad people do suffer, for what they did, and good people. Yeah, nobody. When I was in high school, you have your book, for reading English literature. Other people may have also read it. It was called, what's it called? They grind exceedingly fine. Anybody read that in high school here? You didn't get that one? No? Okay. And it says, it's an old American phrase, It says, the mills of God, right? The mills of God, they grind slow, but they grind exceedingly fine. It may take time for, things to catch up with you, but hey, no good deed goes unpunished. No good deed goes unpunished. Yeah, whatever it is. And it was about some guy who was a rich guy and exploiting his servants on his farm, and and then one of his guys told him to go pick up snow. Told him to go to the to go to the town, maybe about 2 hours away, and do something. And he noticed the guy had dropped some money, one of his employees, so he just kind of pocketed it. And then he came back after dropping off the document and stuff, and the rich guy's son was very sick, and so on. And then it came back, and he was supposed to have bought, he talked to the rich guy's wife, had given him some money to buy some medicine, prescription, but the money he dropped was the money that she'd given him. And so the son died because he stole the money from his servant like that and stuff, So these are all morality lessons, So yeah, the universe operates on the laws of physics, temperature, what else we got? Humidity, all the basic things they try and measure, right? Was physics, temperature, what else you got? Temperature, mass, what else you got? Velocity. Physical things in terms of electrical charge, they try and understand what's going on. But then we're also saying that there's also ethical rules and regulations. Chanaka Pandit, him? Chanaka Pandit? He was the Brahmin who was counseling Chandragupta, who was the emperor who fought with Alexander. Alexander came all the way across the Middle East, and he was conquering Darius, and it was incredible. And nobody like Alexander, practically speaking. And he went all the way to India, and there he conquered. First, he conquered Taxila and just gave up. He said, "Forget it. I surrender." Then after that, the next river was Porus, a very big, powerful guy. And then Alexander used some really incredible strategy and everything else and defeated him. But he was so impressed that he just said, he accepted Alexander as a greater guy, so he incorporated him. The next river was Chandragupta, and by then they'd been able to assemble. And his men, Alexander's men were just about to revolt. They said, "Look, he has more elephants than we have horses." That stuff. What to speak of how many cavalry he has. And we know you're Alexander the Great, but this is kind of, we're tired, So that was it. That was the end of his thing. He never fought. So Chandika Pandit was the Brahmin who was consulting Chandragupta, and the Brahmana who was consultant for Alejandro Magno. Alexander was, you all know him, huh? Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they were disciples. So both of them had their advisors on why are you doing these things, what is the perspective maybe, but also in the subtleties of this thing. Sometime probably after that, what's his name? I forget what's his name. Chandragupta was fighting with one neighboring king. Chandika Pandit says, in Chandika Rajaniti, "My neighboring king is my competitor, my enemy. My neighboring king's neighbor is my friend." And you see this is politics. It works. My neighboring king is my enemy. My neighboring king's neighbor is my friend. It almost always works. Okay. Very simple. So anyway, he was having some continuous rivalry like kings do. And the real competition was one kind of very nice small valley up in the foothills of the Himalayas or something, and very prosperous and reasonable time, maybe a few villages there. And so at this time, it actually belonged to his competitor. The last conflict, they got it. And then the competitor's messenger comes, and what is it? And he says, "Oh, great Chandragupta, my king says, why should we fight about these things?" And he wants to actually make peace with you finally. And to show his goodwill, he's giving you this valley, without a fight or anything. And he's also constructed for your pleasure a very beautiful, palace there, new and everything else like that and so on. This to show his goodwill. So Chandragupta went there with some soldiers and Chandika Pandit and, checking it out. And it was a very beautiful palace with, new marble walls and, nice master bedroom and dining halls and all these things like that, and crispy, clean and fresh, and, nobody had lived in it. And everybody there was peaceful and producing grains. And so Chandika Pandit, Chandragupta was very, very, enamored by everything. He said, "Oh, Chandika, let's bring all the princesses up here, and we'll bring the government. It's so hot down in Delhi. We'll just stay up here and do all the administration, everything else. And what do you think?" And Chandika Pandit said, "Burn it down." Now, Chandragupta is a Raja. He said, "Well, what do you mean, burn it down?" He's a Raja. And Chandika said, "You don't want my advice?" Chandika Pandit says also, 3 things go to a rapid destruction. You know what they are? Trees on the bank of a river, right? They'll get washed away. A woman in the house of some man other than her husband, and kings without counselors. These 3 go to a rapid destruction. Okay. He said, it's very rare to find a poor man who is completely honest, a beautiful young girl who is completely chaste, and one more, I forget like that. They're all yeah. This is pragmatic political science. And it works. We have physical sciences, political science, okay. So then, Chandragupta, was burning the palace down and standing outside and, watching the final smoldering flames stop. And, then he said, my dear Brahmin advisor, maybe I might be able to ask you why we burned down this palace, And Chandragupta said, ants. And so Chandragupta said, what do you mean, ants? And he said, oh God, you stupid, pig-headed, buffalo-headed, there we go, buffalo-headed Kshatriyas, come here. Have your soldiers pry up this floor block, So they worked at it and got it up. And there was a little room under there. And there were 4 soldiers, big, powerful guys that had all suffocated and died there. And they had armor and razor-sharp swords and food and water. And there was a stairway that went right up to the master bedroom, and a very thin wall. And so immediately Chandragupta could understand the entire thing was a trap. I'm sleeping very peacefully with my beautiful princesses in there, and suddenly the wall just smashes open, and guys in solid steel armor with razor-sharp swords come in and hack me to death. And he said, how did you know? And Chanakya Pandit said, ants. Ants. How do you mean ants? He said, while you were lost in your fairyland of imagining all this beautiful pleasure and the things you're going to have here and singing and dancing and picnics and stuff, I was thinking, this other guy has a very clever, Brahmin guy, very practical knowledge and also spiritual knowledge. And so then I saw there were little ants carrying little pieces of food. And I began to think, what are ants carrying food for in a palace that's unoccupied by anybody else? There must be people hidden here like that. Yeah, okay. So Chanakya Pandit says the king can chastise and even, ostracize a brahmana who's acting improperly. But he cannot take his possessions or cause him physical harm. You can tell him, Prabhu, I'm sorry, the way you've been acting, you have to leave the temple in our community. Take your stuff and get out, right? Yeah, it's heavy, Yeah, but he can't confiscate his possessions or physically harm him, And he says the king has to understand that with a single idea, a brahmana can destroy his entire kingdom. Yeah, like that. So brahmana are more powerful because they have more knowledge, more intelligence, more understanding. Jnana Vijnana, right? Practical knowledge of the material world. They're not just airheaded people. They understand practically. And the second thing is, and they have the spiritual perspective, the broader perspective of ethical results, moral results, and all these kind of things and so on. Up to the level of Brahman. Someone like, yesterday we discussed Yamamoto. No? Yamamoto? I didn't discuss that. Pearl Harbor. Yeah. The Japanese, they attacked Pearl Harbor, and they destroyed all the battleships and so many ships and everything else and people and everything else. They annihilated something like, 1/2 of the American fleet, Pacific fleet. It was maybe about 20 minutes or something. And they came back and they were all, pilots and everybody else, all super happy and everything else, and time for sake, and bring out the 200-year-old sake, And then Yamamoto, they're a great, intelligent, Brahmanically inclined Kshatriya. He said, what about the aircraft carriers? And they said, well, they were out in some kind of maneuvers. They weren't there. He said, you didn't get the aircraft carriers? He said, well, no. And he became completely, and everybody, the whole party stopped, And he said, I think all you've done is awakened a sleeping giant and filled him with a terrible resolve. That's all you've accomplished. And it was a fact. And the aircraft carriers, battleships were finished after that. One airplane could sink a battleship, Yeah. So he had a broader perspective, no? Strategy means the general's art. Tactic means immediate at work. Strategy means looking at things from a broad picture. So if you go on like that, not only do you get things which are going to, be true over the next 2 years or 1 year. Yamamoto, he said, I can give them a hard time for maybe 1 year. maybe 1 year like that and so. But after that, it's just forget it. They're going to kick in their production facilities, and we cannot possibly keep up with how much they can produce. When the war was at its height, the Ford Motor Company was turning out one B-25, was the main bomber. I think it was every 7 minutes, one was coming off the assembly line. And the aircraft carriers, the Japanese were working on one, and they had like seven. As he said, it's just, once you get them focused on this thing for 1 year, okay, but maybe what we'll do is we'll get them to sign a peace treaty and stuff, and we'll get the things we want, before they actually start becoming too determined. Yeah. So this is Kshatriya. Kshatriya has a higher vision of things. Kshatriyas understand they're not the body in a kind of like intuitive way. Death before dishonor, right? His motto is, kill them all and let God sort them out, right? Death from above. He's like, live fast, right? Kshatriya motto. Live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse. That's a Kshatriya motto. Yeah. Shudra motto is, it's a good day when I don't die. That's all a Shudra hopes for is like, Vaishya can't have a good day without profit. Doing some business, making some profit. Okay, it was like, it was a good day. So different people have different intelligence, and you can cultivate intelligence. So Yamamoto could see into the future, like, 1 year, sometime like that. But a Brahmana, then he sees Brahman, the absolute truth in all cases and stuff. And he sees, there will always be plagues, COVID is here, people are wondering, how can we solve this and make an adjustment and stuff, Maybe we need to live more rurally, people should get out of the big cities, and, more to passion. But a Brahmana, he says, no, there's going to be more plagues, doesn't matter what you do. People have tried to adjust them for the last 2,000 years, so they're going to come again. And then Brahman, But then after that, then you begin to see like the features, masculinity and femininity. These are eternal, right? Masculinity and femininity are eternal. Radha and Krishna, right? Absolute truth. But it's manifest in this world in different ways and so on. So if we look at it properly, then we can see the transcendence within it. The transcendence within it. Motherly affection. Right? Yashoda and Krishna is eternal. These rasas. So how do we learn from this and become purified by the stimulation and wake up? So that's what he's saying, that the Brahmanas, they can see that you're inside of everything, you're outside of everything. So, any questions now about Uddhava's realization? Uddhava's asking questions. If he knows this much, why is he asking questions? Okay. So, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Here, Uddhava says it's very difficult for impious people to understand Krishna.
Pretend you're talking to a half-deaf donkey.
Okay. Here, Uddhava says it's very difficult for impious people to understand Krishna.
Yeah.
And yesterday also there were topics about piety in the verses that we were talking about. What kind of piety is this? And Brahma also talks about this in his prayers, right? Krita punya punya, that these cowherd boys had accumulated lots of piety to be there.
The word sin, which of course is the opposite of pap, punya and pap. Pap means sin, right? Jhana means people, right? So we all know Papa John's pizza, right? And it means sinful people's pizza. Papa John pizza. Not hiding anything. Punya and papa. So the word sin, if you go back to the Christian tradition and Latin and everything else, you find a lot of, depth and a lot of commentaries and stuff. Jai Shishi Radha Nilamadava ki jai. Bhoro Mandir Pujari ki jai. Wow. Jai. Cows ki jai. The word sin means ignorance. Ignorance. When Rupa Goswami is analyzing devotional service. The first result of devotional service is relief from distress. Then he goes into analyzing the cause of distress, and the fundamental cause of distress is avidya, ignorance. Ignorance. And so then because of that, then we engage in fruitive activities. The fruitive activities produce different kinds of results. Those results produce more results whether you like it or not. And so he's describing how this cycle of sinful activities, being compulsed to do things, forced to do things in different levels and so on. So punya, is pious activities are basically tied right into knowledge. They are austerities. If you do a certain austerity, for example, if you control your eating, then you begin to see how your body works, and you get knowledge by doing that. The Vedas are recommending do this pious activity, do this pious activity, do this austerity. Usually piety means some austerity, some control, like that. And then you get knowledge. There are three kinds of pious activities. Pious activities for sense gratification, for a nice comfortable life in this life or the next life. Pious activities to get out of the whole mess completely. And pious activities to advance in spiritual life. What was that? Punya kriti. Every time you circumambulate Tulsi, every time you come to a class, even if you're falling asleep during the class, you're accumulating a little pious activity. And Prabhupada says, and someday you will dance with Krishna. It's like guaranteed. You just have to go on. So it's a little, okay? Punya. Yeah. Microphone, yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate. Yeah. Okay. Half-deaf donkey. Okay, yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
In the purport, Prabhupada specifies that Vaishnavas shouldn't spend as much time or energy on those who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And I'm kind of interested in why that's specified. Or, because what I'm thinking, right, is why not share the mercy of Krishna with everyone equally?
Very good question. Yeah. When Prabhupada, basically maybe there was 25, 50 basic concepts which you're trying to get across in the books, and you see them again and again until finally, And at some point you take initiation, you promise, okay, I promise to chant my rounds, I promise to follow principles. On the other side, you promise that I'm going to advance. If I'm not advancing, I'm not obligated. That's a practical thing. So I remember, one guy was one argument that you're killing. You're a vegetarian. You're not killing animals, but you're killing plants and everything else. And so I was kind of like, but I had faith. Yeah. And eventually I heard Prabhupada answered that question from somebody, and he said, yeah, but it's just like you don't kill children. Children are just like animals, but you appreciate that there's a difference there. So yeah, we're killing plants and everything else, but we can offer them to Krishna, and he justice, so the plant gets all benefit like that, and so on. So he gives an example one time. He said, this material world is like a battle. Basically that's it. Basically what's going on. And we're trying to deal with the situation. So this is a surgeon in the battlefield. He sees, okay, if I stay with this guy if I can keep him alive for 10 minutes, if I just stay with him, but he's going to die. And he looks over there and he sees, okay, that guy, if I go and take care of him for 10 minutes, he'll be stabilized, and after a week or so, 2-3 weeks, he'll be back in the battle. He looks over there and he sees, okay, this guy, if I stay with him for 10 minutes, he'll be back in the fight right now. So what do? Prabhupada said, it is unfortunate, but, Then we try and take care of people who are willing to, because they then go around and help other people and so on. That's the best thing to do. But that's, the material world. But Krishna, he's taking care of everybody. And so ultimately, even though we can't do everything, we understand, okay, Krishna's going to take care of this. Okay? Pragmatic. Sorry, fellow. Sorry, fellow. Yeah. This guy's in better shape than you are. Haribol. Yeah. Here's your, okay, Tulsi water. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just had a comment.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So I grew up like Christian, so we were taught, you should get to know the Lord in spirit and in truth.
Yeah.
It was like a common phrase they use. I never really understood what it meant, but like reading these purports and these verses, it's like, oh, these guys really know the truth. They know Krishna, and like they can distinguish between like spiritual and material energy, and like actually see like where Krishna's operating and stuff. So I was just appreciating it because like so many things are just like reconciled with Srimad Bhagavatam.
No, many times exactly what you're saying is this tattva. Where's it go? Tattva beti taha. It says know it in truth. So the Sanskrit word is tattva beti taha. It's just like jnana and vijnana. Prabhupada says, he says knowledge and scientific knowledge. Yeah. And again, it's kind of like a general knowledge. Maybe you know something, but this is you know it to the level where it's practical, where you can deal with it and get a result out of it, and so on. Yeah. Veti tattva taha. How's that go? Vedanti. That's it. Yeah. Vedanti tattva vedas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavan iti sabdate. So many of the verses that the acharyas are quoted are all in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam. Basically, he answers all the questions there. Okay. So devotees used to memorize that entire thing. So you see so many verses are there and stuff, Yeah. And they're like pounding, like a foundation, like blocks and stuff. If you know those, you can concentrate your intelligence, you can build your logic, and then all those different points are connected to other points, and then you develop a very, very good logic, like that, which is a uttamadhikari. Yeah. Okay. Christianity ki jai. We believe in one God. Right? You know the whole thing? The credo? The Nicene Creed? We believe in one God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. You don't know it? My God. You're a Christian. Uh-huh.
I wasn't a very good Christian.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's a Nicene Creed, the credo. It was done in the Conference of Nicaea, I don't know, right after maybe the 5th century or something. Who are we? And it's like the Vedanta Sutra, and it's like, so many Christian churches, they accept it. Sometimes they change one or two words and they have wars over it. So it's like, okay, how much do we agree with? See if we agree with us. We believe in one God, okay, Father Almighty. Well, maybe baby all mischievous, but Prabhupada says that same thing. One God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, by whom all things are created. Yeah, this is Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. Who incarnated as Jesus Christ, okay, for us men and our salvation, yeah, okay. Born of the Virgin Mary. Somebody says someplace, Prabhupada kind of says, okay, born of the Virgin Mary, who suffered and was crucified under Pontius Pilate and descended into hell, and the third day rose from the dead. That's kind of like, out of our, not in our job description. It's just like very specific, and we just kind of say, we don't know about that. No. We believe in one baptism, one diksha for the remission of sins. Yep, yeah. We believe in one Catholic and apostolic church. Catholic means universal, yeah. Actually, we believe in 4 Catholic apostolic churches, no? Brahma Sampradaya, Lakshmi Sampradaya, who else we got? Shiva Sampradaya, and what else? Huh? Kumar Sampradaya, yeah. But apostolic means succession, like that. So many things, even like on the hard technical matters, we agree on so many things. And the basic principle, the basic definition of God is what? There's 4 nutshell verses. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata. Basic definition of God is cause of all causes, which he's explaining here, that everything comes from him. So we believe in one God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, by whom all things are created. And that's we agree with that and so on, Whereas we believe in one particle, the Higgs boson. We believe in the Higgs boson by which all things were created and everything else and so on. It's people. Most people who call themselves scientists, I would say, practically are actually laboratory technicians. It was his name, Maurice Wilkins, working with him, Nobel laureate, and he said, when I became a scientist a long time ago, he said it was because people thought this is how we're going to understand everything, who we are, what is the purpose of life, where all the big questions will be answered. It was a very noble endeavor. But he said, I was just shocked when I found out that 60% of all scientific funding comes from the military. 60% of all the money for science is developed how to kill people. Yeah. And he said, you give somebody a long-term funding and a little bit interesting problem, and they'll sign up for anything and call it science. So very, very serious discussion about our predominating Brahmins in this world. Yeah. So Uddhava will go on with some more questions here. Okay, and because we're German, we have to go on with something like that. Because we are a German? Okay. Okay, text number 3. It's not a sign to me, but I'll do it anywhere. Yesham chabuteshu. You got it there? Yeah. You can see how the Sanskrit is just so beautiful, the alliteration. What happened here? It disappeared. I lost control of my cell phone. Okay. Yeshu chabuteshu. Bhaktya tvam paramarsayach. Upashina prapadyante. Ksangsiddhim tad vedashvame. Please tell me. See, first off, he's identified who Krishna is. You got him there. This is who I understand who you are, And now, with that perspective, I want to ask you this question. Okay, yeah. Please tell me the perfections that great sages achieve by worshiping you with devotion. Also, kindly explain which of your different forms they worship. Yeah? Okay. Do they worship Ganesh? Do we worship Ganesh? Do we worship Goddess Durga? Can we worship her? Yeah. Prabhupada gives the mantras for worshiping Ganesh, Durga, Shiva, and Brahma. They're all from the Brahma Samhita. Yeah. And so, we can worship them from a Vaishnava point of view. Ganesh has the power to remove all obstacles, right? On the path of everything. If you want to have a wonderful marriage partner, or want to have wealth, all these things, then you should worship Ganesh. Yeah. He has these big lumps on his head there, very strong. But where does he get his power? Because he holds the feet of Lord Nrsingadev. So when you see these things here, you understand Lord Nrsingadev's feet are there on his head like that. Yeah. So from that perspective, again, then we can see, the Brahmanas can see, this is how Krishna likes to be approached through the demigods. He likes the demigods to be stimulated in their service to him, and that they can then do the job like that. Okay? Sri Uddhava here inquires about the spiritual opulences of the Lord, which consist primarily of his Vishnu Tattva expansions such as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. By worshipping different plenary expansions of the Lord, one achieves particular perfections. And Sri Uddhava wants to know about this. Vasudev predominates over what? Vasudev predominates over material consciousness. Pradyumna, Sankarshan, I think is over the false ego. Pradyumna predominates intellect, understanding, and Aniruddha is the predominating deity of the mind. And the sun is an incarnation of Aniruddha, and therefore it is impossible to keep good mental health without sufficient sunlight. Anybody ever live in Seattle? Anybody ever visit Seattle? Yeah. You can buy postcards when you're there as a tourist. And one postcard is all kind of like gray, cloudy thing. And it says, a typical winter's day in Seattle. You turn it and it says, a typical spring day in Seattle. Turn it again, it says, a typical summer's day in Seattle. Typical. It's out of 365 days or something like, 315 are cloudy or overcast. When the sun comes out in Seattle, people declare a national holiday. They go out, they close the schools, they go out and, And hey, it's one of the highest suicide rates in the country, one of the highest conditions of alcoholism, because it's just without sufficient sunlight. Yeah. And so if you're doing it, take the time to get out in the sun, to take walks in the sun and, taste the water and stuff, and then you'll be so much more productive. So he wants to understand Krishna's, superior potencies. Okay, text number 4. Gudascharasi bhutatma. Wow, you guys are good. Bhutanam bhutabhavana. Wow. Na tvam pashanti bhutani. Pashyantam mohitani te. Ah. Really good Sanskrit. O my Lord, O maintainer of all, although you are the super soul of all living entities, you remain hidden. Thus being bewildered by you, the living entities cannot see you, although you are seeing them. The Lord exists as a super soul within everything. He also appears in various incarnations, or sometimes empowers a devotee to act as an incarnation. All such forms of the Lord are unknown to the non-devotees. The bewildered, conditioned souls think that the supreme enjoyer, Sri Krishna, is actually meant to be enjoyed by them for their sense gratification. Praying to God for specific material benedictions and assuming God's creation to be their personal property, the non-devotees cannot understand the actual form of the Lord. They therefore remain foolish and bewildered. Within the universe, everything is subject to creation, maintenance, and destruction. And thus the supersoul is the actual controller of the material world. Unfortunately, when the supersoul appears in his various incarnations to clarify his position, ignorant persons think that the supersoul is merely another creation of the modes of material nature. As stated in this verse, they cannot see that person who is actually seeing them and simply remain bewildered. When Krishna was on the planet as a supersoul, the Pandavas had all these things going on with the Kauravas, and the Kauravas were, offense personified. Duryodhana, I think, was offense personified, and so many things were happening between pious and impious activities, and the good and the evil, the gods versus the devils. And so Krishna sent Akrura to Hastinapur to see how the Pandavas were doing and if they were being taken care of properly by their uncle, which sounds a lot like the story of Hamlet. And Akrura was the commander-in-chief, what you call it, the Senapati of Maharaj Ugrasena, so he could talk to, Dhritarashtra man to man. He was on a peer level with him. And he told him, after seeing everything, how Kunti was telling him, they're trying to kill my kids. They tried to poison Bhima. They tried to burn us all to death. And this one after another, trying to do this peaceful annihilation. And all this stuff's going on, and just praying to Krishna to protect us. I feel like a deer with her does surrounded by a forest full of wolves and trying to protect my children. They couldn't do it overtly because the Pandavas, their father was Pandu, and Pandu had a lot of classmates with whom he'd been, conquering the world together. And if Pandu's gone, and his sons were being abused by the king, they wouldn't tolerate it. They would come forward, and stuff. So they had to do it peaceful annihilation. Everybody's smiling, So after seeing all this, before he went back to Dwarka, Mathura, then Akrura talked to Dhritarashtra, man to man, and he said, at least you should treat them equally, what to speak of this and that, and so forth, so on, and gave him very good advice. And Dhritarashtra said, Akrura, thank you for your free advice, Akrura. And he said, but I know, I'm not a fool. He wasn't. He was a very elevated person, very elevated. Maybe as elevated as some of the devotees in the temple here. Maybe they're as good as Dhritarashtra. Maybe they'll be Dhritarashtra. Like that. Yeah. And he said, I'm not an idiot. I know there is a Paramatma. I know there is a superior force that is controlling the universe, that it moves on rules and regulations, that there are celestial mechanics. And I know that when the earth becomes disturbed and Dharma is disturbed, that Paramatma takes a human form and walks the earth. And I know that the son of Devaki is that Paramatma, come to set things correct. And I know my sons are adharmic, and I know they're going to be destroyed. He said, but I'm disattached. I cannot give them up somehow or other. It's very interesting, no? Ever in that situation yourself, you know you should not eat the other gulab-jamun. you know. Like this, but yeah. So he's describing a very interesting position, you know. In the Mahabharata, Peterbrook Mahabharata, Krishna comes at the final time to try and adjust things, and so there's not going to be a battle like that. He comes as personally himself to try and convince Duryodhana and everybody else to just give them 5 villages or something like that and just create peace, And so Duryodhana is like, so bad. He says, I wouldn't even give them 5 villages. I won't even give them the land that will fit under the head of a pin. Yeah. So, and catch Krishna, we'll tie him up, and the Pandavas won't have him for their friend. So you're going to catch me. So he shows his universal form. And so the Mahabharata, and Peter Brook does a very nice thing of the Dhritarashtra. Jai, Madhava ki jai. The curtains separate, and Dhritarashtra can see this universal form. Duryodhana, other people can't see it. Some people, Bhishma, and other people can see this universal form like that, and so on. And then the Duryodhana and Karna and stuff, they just kind of become disgusted and go away. But then it all becomes dark again for Dhritarashtra, and for his vision is covered again. And he tells Krishna, he says, Krishna, I tried my best to avoid this, And Krishna says, so did I. So we have, pious and impious activities. They're connected to Krishna ultimately, And because of that, we can see these higher realities or not. Okay, so text number 5, which I guess somebody will take over next week, starting on text 5 next week, right? And the last comment by Uddhava. And tomorrow we go back into the Krishna House series. Yes. Whenever I hear the word Krishna House, I think of Animal House. A series of movies called Animal House, the Krishna House. Okay. Still Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Back home, back to Godhead. Bodo Mandir Pujari ki jai.